What is up, sports geeks? It's your host, Josh, here back with another College Hoops episode, joined by Nick, the college basketball guru himself. As always, Nick, pleasure having you on. And right off the bat here, we're going to be talking about the who we think could win the Word Award, right? So, Player of the Year, I think if we would have ended it 2 weeks ago, John Broome would have ran away with it because this Auburn team looks absolutely spectacular, and John Broome also has looked spectacular. And now he's out with the ankle injury for a week, 2 weeks. Who knows if he's going to be back for that game on the 25th against Tennessee. But John Broome being out, I think, opens the door for Cooper Flagg. I don't know if John Broome being out necessarily opens the door for him. Cooper Flagg is opening the door himself. And Cooper Flagg has been playing absolutely spectacularly. And the Wooden Award has only been won 3 times by a freshman. Kevin Durant won it, Anthony Davis won it, and Zion Williamson won it. So some pretty good company if Cooper Flagg were to go do this. But I think this just brings up the question here for you. Do you think Cooper Flagg, the true freshman, can win the Wooden Award this year?
At the beginning of the year, I would have told you no. I would have told you no. I would have said, yes, he's a great player. His stats weren't reflecting that he could have won it. He was still averaging anywhere from 15 to 17 points. Don't get me wrong, great player, going to go number 1 overall no matter what. I look at it now, I say yes. He has started to round into form. He's cutting down on the turnovers. He's starting to make three-point shots. He just scored 42 on Saturday against Notre Dame, and he did it on 14 shots with only missing 3 of them. You look at the team leaders and every stat they have: points, Cooper Flagg; rebounds, Cooper Flagg; assists, Cooper Flagg; steals, Cooper Flagg; blocks, Cooper Flagg. It's ridiculous. You see this Duke team now, and where you saw them at the beginning of the year, where they didn't really know what they were going to do on offense. They didn't have to guard Cooper Flagg from beyond the arc. It was mostly inside paint touches or a one-on-one high ball screen where he's coming off and he's going to the hoop. Now you have to guard him from outside of the three-point line. And, you look at it now, he's shooting 35% from deep, and he's right there with Knippel, who's shooting 35.4. And this team is completely different now, and now you have to guard all 5 on the ball, and you can't double down on Cooper Flagg. If you do, guess what? It's going to Proctor, going to Knippel, and this team is slowly but surely starting to round into form. And I don't see them really taking a step back in the coming weeks.
No, I don't either. And I think one of my big points on Cooper Flagg here is if you look at earlier in the season, if you're just looking at box scores and you don't look at field goals attempted, you really probably don't see too much of a difference between the play. But I think the big thing for me is the efficiency. The efficiency that Cooper Flagg's been playing at here. His last 3 games, he's gone 42, 19, 24, right? He's averaging a little under 29 a game right now in his last 3 games. And he's doing that on, I believe, 14, 12, and 11 shot attempts. That's spectacular efficiency, right? You look at like this previous game, right, against Notre Dame, 42 points, I believe 11 of 14 from the floor. Earlier in the season, he's putting up 7 of 18, right, a 6 of 17. Those are because he's trying to force it, right? He's saying, I'm the scorer, I have to force it. I think what this Duke team as a whole is doing is the ball movement is just elevated to such a high level to that they don't care who is scoring. Probably one of the reasons why Kaman Malawak has one of the best effective field goal percentage in the nation, right? Because he takes smart shots. Same with Knippel. That's what he's been doing, right? I believe he was like 3 of 5 in that one point in the second half in that Notre Dame game. He's taking intelligent shots, and Cooper Flagg is doing the same thing. The efficiency he's playing at is spectacular. He is maturing at an elite rate, which I think pivoting this, right? The Wooden Award, I think we both agree, is really, really trending towards Cooper Flagg, especially given the fact that the ACC conference is a down conference this year, and he's going to have plenty more opportunities where he can put up a 40-point game, right? But I think when you pivot to March Madness, right, can a team that's led by 2 freshmen, I would say certainly led by 1 freshman and then a couple other experienced players in there, can this team compete? The freshman is not playing like a freshman. He's maturing very quickly. And I feel confident saying that by the time March Madness comes, he's going to be playing at the level, at the maturity of at least a junior, if not a senior at that point.
Yeah. You look at it, he did finally turn 18 on December 21st, and he hasn't looked back since. I think he's had at least over 20 almost every game. He's starting to do everything possible in his way. Like, there's nothing that can get in his way. You look at when they played Auburn, he shot 7 of 18 from the field, 0 of 4 from deep. He had 8 points from the line of his 22. So almost half of his points are coming from the line because he was just attacking to get to the hoop. But he doesn't have to do that anymore. He's slowly getting to his pinnacle of being a college player to where he can do it from every which level. And I think when you get to come March Madness time, if you know that you have that in your pockets where Cooper Flight can take over a game like that, let's say they get down early in like the Sweet 16 to a team like, let's say, Houston. They go
Mm-hmm.
down a quick 10. Last year they would have probably been like, what are we going to do? We really don't know what to go. We don't know who to go
Mm-hmm.
to. What are we going to do? At this point in the season, Cooper Flight can literally take over the game and go do it himself to where he's only doing so much where he can get other people open, he can get other people shots. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the biggest thing is his stats show that he can score at a tremendous rate, but he can also attack the rim, get rebounds, he can get steals, he can assist. It's fantastic because we haven't seen a player like this since you brought up Zion Williamson to where they can do it at every aspect. And I think this Duke team really can go deep in the tournament if they can keep Cooper Flag playing at the same rate.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, I think the drop off of this Duke team, if you look at the drop off of any team in the nation, one player goes into foul trouble, and the drop off that this team would have, I think, is quite a bit. But Cooper Flagg's been playing at a very intelligent. He's been maturing, like I mentioned, but he's playing intelligent defense too. I mean, he's a freakishly good shot blocker. Don't get me wrong, but he plays smart defense. He understands foul trouble. He understands he's going to be a target for teams to get into foul trouble. But I think part of it is that when you're going at a guy that's 6'9", 6'10", and can jump through the gyms and probably a 7'2" wingspan, it's hard to get him in foul trouble because he just blocks most of your shots. So I really like Cooper Flag. I really like this Duke team coming March, and this is a team that we had some question marks coming into the season, right? Of how fast can your freshman mature? Right? Can you have the transfers like Sion James, Mason Gillis come in and actually make a difference? And I think they are. So that's something that I really like out of this Duke team. I will say we mentioned the Wooden Award. I think it'd be a shame if we didn't mention Eric Dixon for Villanova and what he's doing. He's going to be in the running. Let's not forget that. PJ Haggerty is going to be in the running. I think Cam Jones is going to be in the running for Marquette. Just some other names to watch, right? As you go into this deeper conference play, you could have a guy like Cam Jones put up back-to-back 35 pieces. And then it makes it really difficult if he goes and puts up 35 against UConn and hits a buzzer beater 3 to win. Okay, the tides are going to shift, right? So I think and again with Johnny Broom, there's a chance he only misses 2 games, right?
Yep.
Now the game tonight is going to be a big game to miss, but if he's back to 25th and goes off against Tennessee, it's going to be interesting. But I really like Cooper Flagg's chances here. But I want to talk about Auburn here because this Auburn team going on the road against South Carolina, getting a tough win when John Broom goes down is a really impressive win to me. And I want to kind of just get your thoughts on how you think they will bode in the next week or two without John Broom.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was a really scary game on Saturday. Obviously, if you
Mm-hmm.
saw the replay of Janai Broom going down, his ankle literally touches the hardwood, and
Mm-hmm.
he was down screaming in pain. Like, you would have thought that he broken his ankle and he was going to be out the rest of the year. So, yeah, the fact that they were able to get out of this with it only being a little bit of a sprain, he may miss the rest of the month, but could also be back against Tennessee. I think that's huge. But I think you can also look at this in a different ways where it's even more important to get these younger guys and these less experienced guys more confidence and get them more playing time. I mean,
Yep.
you look at it, a lot of Auburn, what they do is going through Pettiford on the outside or going down low to Janai Broom. They don't really do much else besides, obviously get out and run and take some deep threes. But like being able to have some younger guys come in and really be like, hey, look, I need you to go get me a bucket.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I need you to go and you got to score because guess what? We don't have our safety blanket and Janai Broom down low to where we can just dish it down to him and he can get us a bucket when there's 5 seconds left on the shot clock. So the biggest thing I think is most people probably wouldn't see this way is the fact that Auburn's going to get more playing time from their depth pieces. And that
Mm-hmm.
can only help you come March because you really never know come March if somebody could get hurt, you get in foul trouble, you need somebody to come off the bench and be a spark plug. And I mean, that only could help them, especially considering there are only 2 games this week, and then Auburn has next week off. They don't play a single game, and then
Right.
they'll come back and play the 25th. If you can get John Brim some minutes in the 25th game, so be it. If you can't, who really cares? I mean, it's one game against Tennessee. You're playing in the SEC. You're going to have multiple high-level quad one wins. Where I mean, you're looking at, I think in the Ken Palm, there's 10 of them are in the top like 25. So you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna have your chances to get big time wins. And at the end of the day, I'd take a national championship over an SEC regular season title, and I'm sure Bruce Pearl and the Auburn Tigers would as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think that's kind of to your point of if you are a team that's going to be on the fringe, right? You're a first four in, last
Yep.
four out, or first four out, last four in. I think then having John Broome to miss, these games against the game against Mississippi State, and then the other one, which is Georgia, having John Broome miss those 2 games is massive, right? Because that could cost you a tournament bid. This Auburn team's not going to miss the tournament. That's not a concern at all. So all it does
Yep.
is it gives your guys like we talk about Cooper Flagg and his ability to mature so quickly is because he was leaned on so heavily, right? You watch the end of that Kentucky game, he failed, right? He failed back-to-back bad turnovers, right? Going to that spin move. Mark Pope drew up great defense, but he's going to the spin move, turns it over back-to-back times. He fails, right? But then he learns, and now he progresses. And now if you watch him do that spin move, he peeks over his shoulder every time before he does it, right? And I mean, it happened against Notre Dame. He went to the spin move late in the game, and he threw a pass to Tyrese Proctor, who hit a 3, or that was the game before that. But either way, the maturity comes when you are relied on, right? When they have to count on you. And that's exactly what I think we're going to see with Tahad Pettiford. It's exactly what we saw in the South Carolina game. He made big plays in that game, and he was relied on to. So I would expect at some point in the next week or two, in these next 2 games with Mississippi State and Georgia, Tahad Pettiford's going to fail. He's going to have a bad turnover. He's going to take a stupid shot. He's going to have to throw a stupid pass that's a steal for a dunk at the other end. He's going to do that, but that's good because that means he's going to learn from it. I think this Auburn team, it's one step back for 2 steps forward, realistically, to give my 2-minute answer there in one sentence. 1 step back, 2 steps forward.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, yeah, you're losing a guy that's averaging 18 and 10. Like another guy, when you look at the team leaders for Auburn in stats, he leads in points, rebounds, assists, and blocks. Yeah, you're going to be losing that. But you're also giving more time to some of your guys that aren't playing a ton. Like Caldwell's going to get a ton more minutes. You're looking at Baker Mazari, who's getting a leap up in scoring. Same thing with Pettiford. All these guys are getting more relied on, and I think that only helps your team because Bruce Pearl is a fantastic coach, and we've already seen it. He can get the most out of all of his guys, the absolute most out of all of his guys. And if you're going to be without, let's say, Johni Broome we'll say through the end of the month, we won't have him play against Tennessee. I'm truly not that worried because I think this team is athletic enough and they play a tough enough style of basketball to where this is only going to help them in the long run.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I do want to touch on, so we talked about Duke, we talked about Auburn. Those are the 2 of the 3 big 3, I think, in my opinion right now, and in your opinion. I think we're pretty aligned on that. The other part of this big 3 to complete this trio is the Iowa State Cyclones, who are flying extremely under the radar this year. I think it's almost like it's almost sad how little attention they're getting, which, we fell into this, right? We have not mentioned them much on the show here at all. So we'd say it's about time. And, tomorrow they play at home against number 9 Kansas. I think this is going to be a massive game. But you look at this Iowa State team, the only loss is to Auburn by 2 points.
They were winning in. Game they're up by 16 in the second half.
Yes, a game they should have won, right? And that's one where, like we said, you take 1 step back, 2 steps forward. You blow a game. It's a bad loss. I mean, it's a fine loss because you lost to Auburn, right? But
it's a bad way to lose.
The way that you lost is bad. And then you come back, you beat Marquette, right? You go beat Baylor. You look at you beat Iowa. I remember watching that game and thinking this is going to be a tough game. It's an in-state rivalry on the road, and this Iowa team's not bad, right? But they need every opportunity to win. You got a target on your back, your Iowa State, and they dominated that game. I mean, it was pretty consistently. They were up by 8 to 10 in that game. So I think that this Iowa State team is very dangerous for come March because of how battle tested they're also going to be. You look at their schedule. You have Kansas twice still. You still have at Arizona. You still have at Houston. You have plenty of games. They play Cincinnati. We all know how good they are. That's a joke. But they are going to be battle tested, similar to a lot of the people that we're talking about here in the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of helps Iowa State how I wouldn't say depleted, but not nearly as good as it usually is with the Big 12 conference. Usually if we're looking at the Big 12 conference like it was at the start of the year, you had 5 teams ranked inside the top 10. Mm-hmm. Usually that's how it is with this conference, and it's not this year.
The way that we're looking at the SEC right now.
And I think that helps Iowa State. I think that helps Iowa State out a ton. Mm-hmm. You let them fly under the radar, and they just keep winning games, keep getting confidence. I mean, you look at their leading scorer in Curtis Jones. This is a guy that 2 or 3 years ago he was coming off the bench, but he wasn't doing much. You know,
Mhm.
maybe getting 5 points a game. And you look at him now, he's probably going to be the sixth man of the year in the Big 12. And he's averaging 17.3 points per game. He's a leading scorer. And you
Mhm.
go down that list and you look at like guys like Keyshawn Gilbert, Joshua Jefferson, a transfer
Yeah.
from St. Mary's, who they were able to get an absolute stud. Taman Lipsey, and then Milan Mamlamovic. I botched that name, but I mean, you have five guys that average 10 or more points, and then you have another guy in Deshaun Jackson who's averaging 9.5. I mean,
Mhm.
this is a balanced scoring attack, a team that absolutely suffocates you on the defensive end, and another team that loves to get out and run. And I
Yeah.
think a team like this in the Big 12, I see absolutely no problems. I think they can go and win the Big 12, and I think they'll probably end up playing the likes of Houston um, in the championship to really take this league home. And I really don't see how Iowa State's not at least a 2 seed in this upcoming tournament.
Yeah, my thing about Iowa State here is that you have a pretty elite level of experience, right? You have, well, I mean, what TJ Otzelberger is doing here is with his guys. You take a look at Curtis Jones, comes from Buffalo. 2 years ago, he's with Buffalo, right?
Yep.
He's with Iowa State, but he's not the guy last year. Same thing with Keyshawn Gilbert, right? Comes from UNLV 2 years ago.
Yep.
Now last year he's there, but he's not the guy, right? But you have all of this experience where you've been not only are you experienced in college basketball, you have at least a year of experience under your belt in the program. And I think that's
Yeah.
what really stands out to me about this Iowa State team is that you have everybody that's fitting your system now. Your system is aligned with all of the styles that you have. And this Iowa State defense plays spectacular defense. They get out and run. And I think that those two things, when you combine them together, it's something that we don't see out of like Bama and North Carolina, right? I think this year Bama's taken a step back defensively because last year I think they took a step forward and they played that high pace with a good defense. But this year, them in North Carolina, they both play that really fast pace. They're like in the hundreds when it comes to defensive efficiency. So I think that when I look at this Iowa State team plays fast. They play efficient on defense, and they're efficient on offense as well. It's dangerous when you get to the tournament when you have these older guards, right? That's what we're looking at here. These
Yep.
older, experienced guards in a team that's just so spread out. I mean, they have five guys averaging double figures, right? It's not a
Yeah.
team like Duke when you have, Duke might have guys averaging double figures, but you watch their games, it is the Cooper Flag show, right?
Yep.
And then it gets
You know where they're going
facilitated.
for a bucket.
Right, and it gets facilitated from there, right? It's Cooper Flag drawing attention and other guys hitting shots. This Iowa State team is just balanced scoring across the board. I mean, five guys in double digits. You have a guy at 9.5 in Deshaun Jackson too. So
Yep.
you're nearly there. I mean, he's a 15-point game away from being then the sixth guy in double figures there. So
Yep.
I love this Iowa State team. I love what they're doing. And I really think that TJ Otzelberger and his guys here are really going to be a problem when it comes to March Madness.
It's crazy to think about 4 short years ago when he took over that job. They
Mm-hmm.
were 2-22 at one point in the season. And it is probably one of the greatest turnarounds I've ever seen. I mean, he hit the portal and he knows who he wants to get. He wants to get guys that aren't selfish, guys that want to play ball together and look at it as a team game. And I mean, he could have done a better job. And he could have
Yeah.
done a better job. I mean, in his first year, they made the tournament as an 11 seed, went to the Sweet 16, and then they
Mm-hmm.
made it again as a one. I think it was a 6 seed, and then they were a 2 or 3 seed last year, and they're looking at it the same way this year. It's fantastic. It
Yeah.
really is something that's crazy because this Iowa State team, this whole program was dead a
Yeah.
good 4 or 5 years ago, and here they are getting ready just to continue to run the Big 12, and he couldn't have done a better job.
Yes. Yes. No, I'm right there with you. Now, a team I want to talk about here as I pull them up here is UCLA, because I think this UCLA team is we talked about it earlier in the year, and we said that I don't know if they play hard defense, and I think that's kind of their MO, but I don't know if they have the scoring to even keep up with anybody. And what we saw earlier in the year, you beat Oregon, and I remember talking about this with you here on the show, is
Yep.
okay, you beat Oregon, but we don't know how good Oregon is yet because you're still just you're playing Big Ten conference play. It's just Pac-12 in
Yeah,
the
they're just
Big
playing
Ten,
Pac-12.
right? Because their first two games were Washington, Oregon. So
Yep.
you haven't played a Big Ten game yet. And since they're 0-4, right? You lose on the road to Nebraska by 8. You lose at home to Michigan by 20. right? That's a game you were favored in. You lose at Maryland by 18. And then you lose at Rutgers. And this Rutgers team, I mean, we were watching the game last night talking
Yeah,
about it. And we were like, there's no reason that, I mean, Rutgers should be up by, I don't know, 20 at that game. And
they could.
Rutgers is
Yeah,
struggling.
easily could have.
But the way that that game started is UCLA presses the absolute hell out of Rutgers. And Rutgers wins the tip. UCLA gets a stop. They get a bucket. They get a steal and a bucket. They get a steal and hit a three. And it's 7-0 like that. And it
Yep.
was like, oh, yeah, this is the Mick Cronin team we're used to here, right? This high press, this up in your grill. We're going to force a ton of turnovers. I remember watching the game, the first 2 minutes of the game and saying, oh, there's no way that Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, these two guys are going to be able to handle this pressure as freshmen. And from that point on, Rutgers just comfortably handled UCLA's pressure. UCLA couldn't get anything going on offense. I mean, this Rutgers team is a terrible. I'm ranting a little bit here, I know, but this Rutgers team is terrible defensive team. I mean, a terrible defensive team. And you look at what they just gave up. What UCLA did. You scored 68 points against Rutgers. Okay, they gave up 84 to Notre Dame earlier in the year.
Yeah,
they gave up 79 to Kennesaw State earlier in the year, right?
And lost that game.
And I know what you could say, oh, well, they just give up 68 to Purdue. Purdue was winning that game by 20 the entire game.
Yeah,
that was a game in
close.
which they slowed the pace down too.
It was just ugly.
Right? Yeah, it was ugly, and Purdue slowed the pace down. But you're chasing the game, and you score 11 less points than Kennesaw State does on the same team. That's a huge concern for me going into the rest of Big Ten play, which, I mean, the thing that you have to think about here is that they're 2-4. And only the top 15 seeds make the Big Ten tournament. So if you're going to really struggle with everybody out east, which as of right now, you are struggling with everybody out east, then you have Washington, Oregon, and USC twice. You have 4 more games against the Big Ten West. Everybody else is out east. And if you're really struggling that much, I'm not saying I think UCLA is going to miss the Big Ten tournament, but they don't look good.
Yeah, no, I think they'll sneak in, but they'll be obviously towards the bottom of it. When you look at this team, they have 2 really good big men down low, and Tyler Bilodeau and Eric Daly Jr. I mean, their 4 and their 5 are good. They are good basketball players. They could go to most of these Big Ten schools and probably still start or get good minutes off the bench. But then you look after that, and there's just not much. There's not much. You got Sebastian Mack, who's averaging 10 a game, but after that, Mick Cronin brought in these guys to be scorers and recruited them to come here, giving them all this NIL money, and they're doing nothing. I mean, you're looking at Kobe Johnson, who a great defensive guy. Don't get me wrong; he plays great defense, but he's only averaging 8 points. You need more out of a guy like that. You're looking at Sky Clark, who never got his feet wet, never got hit the ground running in college, and here we are. He's averaging 6.4, and he's playing 25 minutes a game. I mean, we talked about it last night when we were texting back and forth. Mick Cronin's team lacks a guard, just like Dylan Harper, who can go out and attack and win at every level of the court. And they just don't have a guy like that. And, I mean, you can't rely on 2 big men to win you games in the Big Ten because and all of college basketball, it's just not going to work out. And if they don't have one of those guards start to pick it up, I think we're going to be looking at Mick Cronin saying a little bit a few more bad things in the post-game press conference that could lead to, I wouldn't say him getting fired, but definitely getting some repercussions.
Yes. Yeah, no, I mean, I think the way that this UCLA Bruins team is playing right now, I don't feel confident in them going into anybody out east and winning on the road, right? At home, the thing to me that scares me is at home, you're playing a good Michigan team, right? I mean, this is a ranked matchup at home, January 7th. Everybody's just getting back from break. This should be a packed house, difficult place to play, and Michigan comes in and wallops you by 20 and hangs 94 on your spectacular defense.
A game they were winning in the second half too, and then blew the lead.
Yes,
it makes no sense.
Yeah, I really struggle, if you can't tell, to wrap my head around why this UCLA team was rated so highly at the beginning of the year. It continued to be rated so highly and then has lost games. And I think we look back to that North Carolina game, right? When North Carolina beats UCLA and you're like, oh, maybe North Carolina's turning the corner here. I think really what we were also seeing is that this UCLA team is just going to struggle. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not to say that they can't win a big game here and there, right? It's not to say that they cannot turn it around. This team has the ability to play absolutely elite defense.
Yep.
It's just figuring it out, and this is kind of one of those early testers, right, where you have a run like this and you lose four straight, and then you can figure it out. Maybe you go in and you beat Iowa this Friday, and then you can beat Wisconsin, and then you get Washington, USC at back on the West Coast, and you can start to string some wins together. But it doesn't look good for UCLA. I do want to talk about two teams really quickly here: is Michigan, Michigan State, because they're both 5-0 here in the Big Ten, and the Big Ten gauntlet is essentially starting now, right? It's been started, but it's really getting going. And these two teams both look really, really good and really efficient on the offensive end right now.
Yeah. I mean, you look at it, this is peak Big Ten basketball. You
Mm-hmm.
look at the top three, you got Michigan State, Michigan, Purdue. This is the Big Ten basketball that everybody that remembers when they were younger. You'd always watch them play on Sundays when it'd be a ranked unranked game. You're in the zone. I mean, these teams are fantastic. You look at it, Michigan State's won 9 in a row.
Mm-hmm.
9 in a row. You look at Michigan, they've won 5 in a row. Purdue, 5 in a row. These teams are getting back in to the groove of what they've been, 5 or so years down the road in Purdue the past couple years. I mean, they are starting to beat the hell out of teams. And you can see it that they are figuring it out on the offensive end and to go along with their great defense. And you look at a Michigan State team where a lot of people saw that this team was going to have issues coming into the year. They weren't nearly as fired up and everyone was ranking them this high. Nobody really saw this coming.
Mm-hmm.
They're figuring it out. They're doing everything they can. They're playing the Tom Izzo way, and it's starting to show because that's why they're tied for first right now with their in-state rival in Michigan.
Yeah, no, I think that exactly what you're talking about. Ranked this Sunday on CBS. We're probably gonna have Bill Raftery on the call. Oh
Yep.
man, there's nothing like a Sunday afternoon Bill Raftery
Yep.
CBS call that just gets me fired up right there. But no, I mean, you look at this Michigan State team. Jeremy Fears, I think, has been such an important piece. His younger brother Jeremiah Fears. So you have Jeremiah Fears, Jeremy Fears Jr., and then Jeremy Fears Sr. at home there. But Jeremiah Fears with Oklahoma, not to mention, I mean, I think he's averaging 18 a game right now as a true freshman. He's playing spectacular. So, I mean, let's not sleep on that. But his older brother, who's also eligibility wise a freshman because of that, suffered the bullet the
Yeah.
bullet wound last year over Christmas break, was granted a medical redshirt. So he's technically a freshman. And he's a guy, real quick, as I share a little bit of fandom here. I don't think he's going to go anywhere because I don't think he's big enough to play in the NBA. So I think he's a guy that's going to he's playing this year and 3 more at Michigan State.
Yeah. Yep.
Hopefully he doesn't take a bag from somewhere because I'm sure plenty of teams are going to be offering it to him. But the way that Jeremy Fears plays, he sets so many people up. He plays at such a good pace. He's so smart for being technically listed as a freshman, right? But
Yeah.
I love that, and I also think that that Wolf for Michigan is he's nothing like Jeremy Fears, but he does a lot of the things that Jeremy Fears does for Michigan State for Michigan, right? He slows the game down. He makes that final pass that sets somebody up, right? He's getting the ball to his players in the positions they need to be at to score. I think he's a great facilitator. He's somebody that, if you had told me at the beginning of the season you're going to run a pick and roll with your 4 and 5 man, I'd look at you like you're
Crazy.
crazy. But
Insane.
they are. And so this Michigan team, I mean, I'll tell you what, the Michigan State versus Michigan game, March 9th, mark your calendars, because you mentioned it last week, and I have a feeling you're right. I think that might be for the Big Ten there.
Yeah, I really do think that's what's going to be. Unless somehow Purdue keeps up this play where they're just beating teams by 30, 40 points a game.
Right.
And backdoors their way in. But other than that, I don't think so. I really do
Mm-hmm.
think it's going to come down to Michigan State and Michigan. I mean, you look at it, very contrasting styles.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan State only has one guy who averages over 10 points. The rest are right around that 7 to 9 range. And then you look at Michigan, they got 5 guys that are in double figures. And like you said, they run their power forward at times as the point guard. And
Mm-hmm.
it's ridiculous. I've never seen anything like it. It's almost impossible to stop. I mean, he's
Mm-hmm.
so tall, he just throws it over your head every time to Vlad Golden, and you're getting a dunk or you're getting an and one layup.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting. I've never seen anything like it in my life But I tell you what, I give credit to Dusty May. He's a hell of a coach.
Hmm.
Michigan, I tip the cap to them for finally getting rid of Juwan Howard. It was time. It
Yep.
wasn't working out. I get what they tried to do with it. I mean, you'd be dumb not to bring him back as, part of the former Fab Five. But to go get a coach from a place like FAU, who took a roster to the Final Four from not even they were at the Conference USA at that point, and get him to come to your building, and in the first year, he already has you playing as a top 25, top 15 team in the country, and you're
Hmm.
battling for the top spot in the Big Ten. I mean, that's already a success. And a coach like Dusty May is only going to continue to build off of that because
Right.
he doesn't need these big time, big name transfers. He can
Hmm.
go out and get guys that, just like we talked about earlier, you go like Iowa State, you go get the glue guy. You go get a
Hmm.
guy that doesn't have to be the top guy who's scoring, 20 points a game. They'll go get a guy
Hmm.
that'll average 12, but he also throws out 8 rebounds and throws out 5 assists because he's not selfish. And
Right.
I think that's the biggest thing when you look at both of Michigan State and Michigan is they are complete teams. They don't
Hmm.
have guys that have to put up so many points, or, like we'll say it right now just to bring it up with Tennessee. Well, they got a team like Tennessee where they had a guy like Chaz Lanier who was averaging 15 to 17 points a game. The past 2 games, he doesn't think he wants to score, and because he wants his NIL money and he thinks some of these shots that Rick Barnes trying to make him take are bad shots. That's not a team player. That's a guy who's there for his money and trying to go to the next level. And I don't see any of that when you watch teams like Michigan State and Michigan.
Yeah, I think that's going to be interesting to see come tournament time is the contrasting styles of the. I think the SEC has a ton of individual talent, and the Big Ten plays a lot more of. I don't want to say team basketball because the SEC plays team basketball,
Yeah.
and saying that the Big Ten plays much more team basketball makes it sound like the SEC, like it's a knock on the SEC, and it's not. But I think it's just interesting when for the SEC, if you have one guy have an off day,
Yeah.
your team drops off a ton. Whereas in the Big Ten, I don't think that's as drastic of a situation. So no, I mean, I think that this entire situation, this entire landscape of college basketball is just awesome right now. So many powerhouses. I feel like every year, like the list of powerhouses just gets longer and longer and longer of these really quality programs. But a ton of good games tonight as this is being
Yes.
recorded. I mean, we have
Yes.
Texas A&M at Kentucky. I'm looking at the schedule here. Texas A&M at Kentucky, which is going to be a spectacular game there. We also have that Auburn Mississippi State game that we mentioned earlier. We have Ohio State going at Wisconsin. They need a big win to get that, the landscape of their season turned around. Ton of good games here, and we'll be back next week, just like always, every single week from here on out till March Madness, and then on live stream for the selection show. But other than that, though, I mean, this has been the Sports Geeks podcast, talking college hoops as always. They play, we talk. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.
3 seconds at midcourt. Jenkins gives it to Jenkins for the championship. Catches, puts up a three. Won't go.